Welcome to the Wealth Renegade podcast. I'm your host, Robby Butler. Have you celebrated your financial independence today? We have a fascinating guest today, a renowned public speaker who shows up at many events to share about the multiple business fields he's involved in. Marc, thank you so much for joining us. My good friend, Marc Halpern.
Robby, thank you so much for inviting me to speak to your audience.
Yes. So to put some context around this, you're involved with four fields at least, four that you at least publicly describe. Some of them clear, and the investment component is why we're here today, but give us a little bit of the broad picture of all the areas you're involved in and what keeps you so busy and so happy.
Well, thank you. Thanks, Robby, for that. I'm 69 years old and I have not decided what I want to be when I grow up. So let me just give you a very brief overview of what I do. And I'll just preface by saying that everything I do has to do with analysis. So we'll go into that. My primary occupation is, I know it's going to sound very arrogant, but I'm the number one expert in the world in a niche called industrial phase transfer catalysis. That's what I do. I've written 4 books on the subject, given lectures in 300 cities in 39 countries, 58 two-day boot camps on that. That's what I'm known for. Another thing which I do, of course, is investing. I'm a part-time investor. Actually, I have a whole group. I have a company called Part-Time Investors LLC. And then I also do strategic business analysis for companies all the way from small cleaning businesses, drone businesses, chocolate businesses, up to a $30 million fund that does private placements. And the new thing which I'm launching is a platform called Now Be Happier, which is based on the first objective metric for happiness, which I didn't realize I invented the first objective metric for happiness until I went to AI and I asked for my competitors and they said, no, happiness is subjective. So maybe we'll get the chance to talk about that a bit. But I do have a TEDx lecture on that. I now have a book called Now Be Happier. We have an app on the iPhone called Be Happier, and a few other things. Got a bunch of lectures and stuff that's going on. So again, haven't decided what I'll be when I grow up, but I enjoy all these different things.
And you said they all tie back to analysis. So if you give us a little bit of the backstory, what is it that first drew you to the subject of analysis and then allowed you to apply it to all these fields, including the investing one?
Okay, well, without going into too much history, I was a total failure as a kid in everything. I was a failure academically, failure socially. I couldn't get anything done. I graduated high school, but without a diploma. And then after I did 3 years of military service, I got into college. Somehow my mother nagged until I got in. And then I decided, well, maybe I needed to prove that I wasn't stupid, which was really hard to do because all the data was all the evidence was I'm certified stupid, left back in 11th grade, all that kind of stuff. So I decided I'm going to try and go into science. I went into chemistry because it was easy to get into in the university that I was in. And surprisingly, it turns out that the military convinced me that I could do stuff that I know I can't do. And then I did actually pretty well. I graduated second in my class, and then I started getting into phase transfer catalysis. I got a lot of publications, started speaking around the world, wrote books, and it was really good. And then at age 50, I realized, well, chemistry is really good. It's super stimulating and it requires, of course, a lot of analysis, breakthrough R&D, especially. There's a lot of risk management that you have to do. But I realized at age 50, it's not going to put me through retirement. So that's when I decided at age 50 to start investing in real estate. And I started with single family home investing because that's the way it's done. And what they call passive income. Well, rental real estate on a good day is semi-passive income. So all I did, I only bought 16 houses over an 11-year period. So I was buying 1 to 2 houses a year, doing as slow as I could, because I don't want to drive myself crazy. And then once I became an accredited investor, then it's like, well, wait a second, there's a whole world out there, which is very, very different. I don't have to manage tenants, contractors, code officials, or even employees. And that's when I came up with what I now call the ultimate passive investor endgame, where, with single family home real estate, you can achieve financial freedom, which means that your passive income, your semi-passive income exceeds your need for household expense, your routine household expenses, and the liquid portion of your net worth will cover the reasonably expected anticipated special expenses for the rest of your life. So you can achieve that. But now you got 20 tenants on your hand. In my case, I had 9. So that's when I decided, once you hit that magic status of accredited investor, now you can do private placement investing, which is totally passive. So that's how you achieve simultaneous financial and psychological freedom. I don't even have any employees. So no contractors, no tenants, no code officials, no employees, nothing. But in order to do this, well, you have to have analysis. So, I took the same risk management skills that I use for breakthrough R&D, because the breakthrough R&D typically has a 5 to 10% in chemistry, has a 5 to 10% success rate. My success rate was 35%, which is a lot higher than everybody else. In real estate, 35%, that's bankruptcy. But in breakthrough R&D, it's really good. It's pretty good. And then you apply that to real estate investing, where the probability of success is 95% if you perform deep due diligence. You can eliminate risk, you can minimize risk. So then I simply apply the same analytical tools that I did for breakthrough R&D to, at the beginning, single family home real estate investing, and now performing deep due diligence on private placements. And now I'm successful at that. I'm not batting 1,000, but I'm batting pretty high. And so that's where all these things come in. And then with the strategic business analysis, well, analysis is in the word. I have a 7-step process, competitive advantages, and there's a whole 7-step process there. And then one day in 2007, I was on a plane from Shanghai to Newark, and I decided, and I just came back, a very successful trip. I made a lot of money, didn't have any preparation, didn't have any follow up, and it was really really cool. And I watched a movie, watched another movie. I got 8 hours left on. I decided I'm going to try and figure out what is happiness, because I was very happy. I'm now married 43 years. I haven't argued with my wife since 2010, which I know sounds unbelievable. Well, you haven't. And so I decided I'm going to define happiness, and that's when I came up with this objective metric for happiness. Because for those of you who watch The Big Bang Theory, I'm Sheldon Cooper with a stomach. I mean, scientists, we just can't leave emotions to run wild. We have to quantify them. So I figured out this metric, and then it turns out that it actually is pretty useful. That together with an opportunity table that I invented just last year, and now I actually am able to figure to track and monitor exactly where I'm happy, where I'm not happy, and which things I can work on to improve. And I do that. And if we have a couple of minutes, I'll describe what the model is. But it's really really it's incredibly simple. Anybody can do it.
The approach that you've taken to drawing all of this data out of your own life and then to be able to share it with others is something else I'd like to unpack, because you have your part-time investors group. You all perform what is, I would call it, nearly a patented process of deep due diligence, triple D diligence, in order
Right.
to encourage the best process and to bring these other folks along on the journey you've been on. To look at the whole picture and to talk about the nuts and bolts for a second, once you identified that private placements was basically your roadmap to reach where you are today, did you retain the previous assets you held? Did you let go of the single family homes? Did you pivot fully towards this new experience?
I'm about 90% of the way there to the total pivot. I still have 2 rentals left, and I want to sell one of them. I was gonna seller finance it to the tenant, but then something happened, and that's not going to work out. Then there's just one rental that I've had. It was a lease option, actually. It started in 2000, and they're still there, which is interesting. And they don't ask for anything, and the cash flow is really great. So I'm not going to sell that one because they have no interest in buying. And that one's totally passive. But I would like to get rid of the one rental, and there's one more note that I want to get rid of as well. But other than that, I'm pretty much into private placements, and I made that transition, and I show people. As a matter of fact, the Triple D Mindset Club that I have, which is part of what I founded, and this is it's part of LFI and part of Left Field Investors. We now have 35 members. We're growing maybe one member a week, because I'm really, really careful. I want to make sure that everybody's into deep due diligence. I don't want people to come in and say, "Hey, I want to buy the loaf of bread." I want people to be able to plant the seed, water the seed, harvest the wheat, bake the bread, and so we have a really great group of people with very diverse backgrounds from all over the country. But yeah, like I'll just give you an example. My self-directed Roth 401k, and I have reasons because that's also very, very efficient based on analysis. Right now is invested in 11 different private placements in 9 different sectors with 7 different sponsors.
Unbelievable.
And yeah, and I do that for, well, some other time we can go into all the reasons. I actually have a full day course on this that I happen to be doing next month, which is called High Return Private Placement Investments, Best Practices and Risk Management. So I'm very well diversified for quite a few reasons. But it's real interesting to do. I mean, the private placements are super stimulating, but they really have replaced the preferred returns of private placements. They replace the cash flow from rentals, and the forced appreciation has private placements has replaced the market appreciation and some forced appreciation from rentals. But it's just really great. I mean, the passive income is great. The growth in net worth is great. Actually, just yesterday, I published a newsletter where I have I think it's called strategies for building a private placement portfolio, and then subtitle is income and growth considerations. There are many considerations, but income and growth. The income and growth is really phenomenal. And but that's if you screen. I mean, my deal flow. Because I go to Family Office Club events a lot and Left Field Investors and Best Ever Conference, I speak at all these places. I now have, as a part-time investor, my deal flow is I get in my inbox, I get about 300 private placement offerings per year. So I have to come up with a system to screen that. I actually have a deal flow manager that handles things. But the point is that if I'm getting 300 of these a year and I'm only investing in a handful, that means I'm rejecting 98% of all that's going on. I can afford to invest only with the best in class opportunities from the best in class sponsors. But in order to have that success, we have to do deep due diligence. And now, I mean, just as an example, a couple of weeks ago, 11 of our group members performed deep due diligence on a single, and together we put in $750,000. The IRRs are in the 30s, and it's short term. So it's a unicorn deal. But when you get 300 and you're only investing in 2 to 6 per year, you can really be highly selective. And then with a group like that we have, that is scientists and cybersecurity people and insurance people, and one guy I think was in car parts, and a dentist. Of course, there's always a dentist in the group, right? You always have to have a dentist. They seem to be very entrepreneurial, and you get all these people together, and they're also socially compatible. It's amazing. People that are willing to do deep due diligence, they are the kind of people that they leave their egos at the door, and it's just an incredible group of people. I mean, I have the worst personality out of everybody in the group by far. So it's really a really neat group to be part of.
Is there a relationship in between the leaving the ego at the door that your due diligence team demands and obtaining psychological freedom that you've achieved as a passive investor? Is there a relationship between dropping the ego and getting to the psychological freedom space, which is above financial freedom?
Yes, there definitely is. Thank you. That's a very in-depth question, very profound. Uh, what happens is that when you perform deep due diligence, then you have to be objective. You cannot be non-objective. So there can't be any politics. There can't be any ego. It's the performance of the team, or sorry, it's the performance. We are actually individual investors, but we all look at performance. And if I do really deep analysis and I'm smart, I can do better. But you have a bunch of people like this get together, and each one has a different perspective. It's impossible to be part of the team if you don't leave your ego at the door. And then everybody wants psychological freedom. Everybody wants to be happier. So it just seems to flow. If you put together a team, I don't know if you've been in partnerships before. I've been in partnerships. I've been in 12 partnerships, 4 fantastic, 4 okay, 4 absolute disasters. And one thing which I learned from this is you really have to be really careful with who you partner with, who you're on a team with. It's really hard to put together a team of 5 people where you don't have one person who's a bit disruptive. 10 people is almost impossible. I mean, a dozen people, and we seem to somehow screen out. We're, I don't want to say an elite group of investors, but we are a special group of investors. Only about talking with many syndicators, 90% of private investors don't read the PPM and the operating agreement, and 95% don't perform deep due diligence. We're in the 5% that do. We scrutinize if there's a semicolon instead of a colon, one of us is going to pick that up in the operating agreement. And then we get back to the sponsor and we say so. So yeah, there is a relationship between being analytical and not leaving and leaving your ego at the door. You just can't be, if you're not analytical, or it's a self-screening process. Somebody is not going to fit in, they're going to know pretty quickly they don't fit in, and they're going to leave. People that do fit in, they're attracted to it. It's like departments when I was in larger organizations. I've been self-unemployed since 95, which means I've been a full-time entrepreneur since 95. And when I was in large companies like Dow and ICI, big companies with billions of dollars in sales, what I found is that good departments get better and bad departments get worse. Because what happens is that good departments, anybody who's a low performer doesn't feel comfortable and they leave. Good departments are also led by people that their self-esteem is okay, they can handle high performers. So, but bad groups are led by people with low self-esteem, and they can't handle people that have high self-esteem. So, groups tend to get better, or groups tend to get worse. Our group tends to get better, and I didn't predict that in advance because I was not that smart. But as the group is growing, I'm just amazed that everybody is pretty compatible. Not sure if that exactly answered your question, but people do want psychological freedom, and the best way to get there is not to have things like politics, ego, and all that kind of stuff interfere.
And that insight, I think, is what makes your book so compelling to the passive investors out there. We interview people who say, "Oh, I achieved financial freedom in, let's call it 2000, 2003, or 2017, or perhaps they just crossed that barrier." And yet there is more work to do beyond that, because you like you said at the very beginning, you can be very comfortable financially and your hair is turning gray by the minute because of the stresses that it incurs and the relationships that you have to demand, perform. And so that additional insight of what it takes to get beyond that to the psychological freedom is why I'm so thrilled to get your insights here. So as you look to the next couple of years, where do you see, especially with your new book just coming out, Now Be Happier, where do you see this going with your due diligence club, with the message you're sharing? What happens next for Mark?
Well, thank you. That's a great question. I ask myself that question all the time, and I always say to myself, okay, I have too many things going on, and I need to exit some of them. And well, I can't exit Phase Transcript just because it is just way too stimulating. It also brings me around the world, and I get exposure to one third of my business pharmaceuticals, one third agricultural chemicals, one third everything else, petrochemicals, flavors, fragrances, dyes, surfactants, explosive solvents, all kinds of really cool stuff. Medical devices. It's really, really interesting. So I really can't give that up. And then, well, strategic business analysis, well, that's also very, very interesting. Drone businesses and just all kinds of stuff. And then the investments, I can't give up that. I mean, it's good stuff. But the Now Be Happier, it's interesting. In phase transcatalysis, the total number of people, the total my total audience globally is probably somewhere around 20,000 to 30,000 people. That's the total. If every single process chemist in the world, when it came to real estate investing, because I have a smart investing home study course to go from zero to accredited investor, well, that's probably in the United States maybe 1 million or 2 million people. But Now Be Happier, that platform is anybody in the world that has a smartphone and knows a little bit of English. So we're talking a few billion people. And so that's really where my passion is. And if you don't mind, I just like to explain what the model is of the happiness score and how it works.
Please.
And yeah, okay, thank you. So on this long flight from Shanghai to Newark, when I was thinking, what is happiness? And it's always, and you ask ChatGPT, it'll say, oh, it's a subjective blah blah blah, all this kind of stuff. Here's my goal. In my never humble opinion, born in New York, I don't have humble opinions genetically. Uh, in my never humble opinion, happiness is about what you do with your time and during your waking hours. And the goal, very simply put, is to maximize the number of seconds that you enjoy without causing harm from now to end of life. Afterlife is beyond my pay grade, so I don't talk about that. But from now to end of life, goal is to maximize the number of seconds that you enjoy without causing harm. And there are many, many different things you can enjoy. It could be community. I mean, there are many, many things you can enjoy. What I did then is I divided time into 4 categories: invest time, spend time, waste time, and sleep. Let's cover sleep first. Sleep is easy. You're either asleep or you're not asleep, or really going to sleep or waking up. Invest time, I defined invest time, and these are very, very careful. I've tested this out. I actually invented this in 2007, and I've been testing out, modifying since then. But here are the exact definitions. Invest time is time during which you're engaged in an activity that you enjoy without causing harm. Okay, invest time, time in which you're engaged in activity that you're not causing harm to yourself or others or to the environment. The color for invest time is green. Spend time, and I hate the word spend. I hate to spend money, hate to spend time. People use spend money and spend time all the time. Oh, disgusting. Spend time is time during which you're engaged in activity that you do not enjoy. But if you didn't do it, it would cause you harm. For example, paying bills, washing the dishes, going to the bathroom. These are things, if you didn't do, the law of conservation of matter says if you didn't eliminate waste from on some periodic basis, you would explode. But most people don't enjoy it. Some people do. And then waste time is time to, and spend time is yellow. Waste time, which is red, is time during which you're engaged in activity that you cause harm. For example, you're yelling at a spouse, or you're doing something illegal or something like that, or you're cyberbullying, or you're whatever it is. And then, so what happens, and the app would Be Happy, which is now for the iPhone, and it's free. So, there's no money to be made here. It's a service that I and my partner who actually coded the app, there's a service that we want to provide to everybody in the world because we believe it's important. Everybody wants to be happier. What you do is that and I only tap on the app 2 to 8 times a day. If this was a video, I could show it to you, but it's very, very simple. There's 4 buttons: invest time, spend time, waste time, and sleep. So let's say I wake up in the morning, the screen is blue because of sleep. If I'm going to, let's say, go to the bathroom for 2 minutes, I'll press the yellow button. It's spend time because I don't enjoy it, but if I didn't do it, it would be a problem. And when I finish a few minutes later, whatever personal hygiene, because I enjoy the work I do, and I start working pretty much a few minutes after I wake up, boom, I hit the green button, and now I'm investing time. And the app is tracking all the seconds between the time that I tap on it. And I only tap 2 to 8 times a day, depending what's happening. So then I keep on going, and they'll say, "Oh, I have to now pay bills, or I have to deal with tenants." Don't don't always enjoy dealing with tenants. So if I have to, let's say, go visit a tenant, or a tenant calls me, whatever, or the property manager calls me, because you still have to manage property managers if you have property managers managing the tenants. That is yellow. That is spend time. I don't want to do it. I don't enjoy it. But if I didn't do it, it would cause me harm. Waste time, I rarely waste time. For me, waste time, which is the red, causing harm, if I'm on the internet between midnight and 5 in the morning, I'm losing sleep. So I actually am very disciplined when I get up in the middle of the night and I start doing Facebook, or playing whatever Remicube or whatever game, Wordle, between 12 and 5. Boom, that's waste time. And then the app, of course, keeps track of all this. And then the opportunity table is pretty much, and our goal is to transfer as much time as possible from spend time and waste time into invest time, because the goal is to maximize the number of seconds, waking seconds, from now to the end of life that I'm enjoying without causing harm. And that's one of the reasons why I saw, wait a second, way too much time I'm spending on tenants. I need to invest them in other things. So how can I transfer time from the spend category to the invest category? I got to get rid of the tenants. Well, you know, getting rid of tenants, well, the legal way to do it is to move into something else. And that's why I redeployed resources, or my equity, from rentals and flips into private placements. So that's how the whole thing ties together. And this whole thing is explained in the book, Now Be Happier. And you go to nowbehappier.com. You can listen to I have a TEDx lecture on this. You can watch it, and there's just a whole bunch of stuff. So hopefully, I know I talked a lot about this, but hopefully I was trying to tie the loose ends between how does happiness have to do with investing and chemistry and strategic business analysis, and how can we maximize the number of seconds from now to the end of life where we're not causing harm.
At the beginning of every podcast that the Wealth Renegade podcast hosts, we ask the question, have you celebrated your financial freedom today? But you've added a dynamic onto it, that to actually celebrate that financial freedom is to move it into a whole new level of freedom, and to even be more intentional about that and draw that into the full spend of your time, and spend the full investment of your time.
Hey, great. Oh, I'm so proud of you.
Is a fascinating insight. So, Marc, thank you so much for being here with us today. And this message belongs out in the hands of the people who speak a little English and want to be happier. So, thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. If anybody wants to contact me, the easiest way to contact me is info@nowbehappier.com. Info@nowbehappier.com. Easiest way to get to me.